Today's topic is the Sathavahanas. The source used is Class 11 NCERT, Ancient India, Chapter 17, The Age of the Sathavahanas. So before we start off, first we need to know that the Sathavahanas were the successors of the Mauryan Empire in the Deccan area. That is, we find that after the Mauryan Empire had disintegrated, several indigenous as well as foreign dynasties established their rule in India. Inside India, we find that in the eastern portion, it was the Shungas and the Kanavas who established their power, whereas in the north, we find the Kushanas slowly establishing their power, while in the west, we find the Shakas, and in the Deccan, we find the Shatavahanas. So we find that these were all certain few of the kingdoms which arose after the decline of the Mauryan Empire. And as we can see from the map given in the NCERT, we find that the Shakas were the most serious rival of the Shatavahanas. That is, the study of Shatavahanas necessitates or involves the study of the conflict between Shatavahanas and the Shakas, because the Shakas were the most serious rival of the Shatavahanas. However, first, before we get into the details, let us look into who were these Satavahanas at all. We find that the Puranas mention that Shatavahanas do not mention the word Shatavahana, but refer to the rule by Andhras in the Deccan in the same period when the Shatavahanas ruled. That is, we may generally associate the Shatavahanas with the Andhras who were referred to in the Puranas. However, we also find that Shatavahana themselves never referred themselves as Andhras in their coins or inscriptions. And we find that the Satavahanas were originally a tribe in the Deccan region. However, after the spread of Mauryan Empire to the breadth and length of the country, the knowledge of greater usage of iron, started writing, etc., started spreading to the other parts of the country, which in fact facilitated in the formation of alternative power centers in other parts of the country. And the result of such spread of material culture, particularly the greater use of iron and writing to other parts of the country from Magadha during the Mauryan Empire, led to the formation or rise of new powers, of which we can see a list in the east, northwest, and the Deccan. So with this basic introduction, now let us get into the different aspects of Satavahanas, that is, the political aspects, the administrative, the economic, religious, and social and cultural conditions of the Satavahanas. First, talking about the political history of Satavahanas. As we had just now seen that the Shakas were the most important rival of Shatavahanas in the Deccan. This is the Deccan, this is Western India, where we will have the Shaka rule. So the political history of Satavahanas is nothing but a series of conflicts between the Western Shakas and the Deccan Shatavahanas. Here we find that in the initial stages, the Shakas were able to defeat Shatavahanas and occupy a lot of their territories. And however, the Shatavahanas revived themselves under the great Shatavahana ruler, that is Gautami Putra Shatakarni, who was able to revive the prestige of Satavahanas by defeating the Shakas. And especially he defeated the Shaka king, the Nahapana. And the evidence for this we find because we find many of Nahapana's coins being restruck by Shatakarni, indicating that he defeated Nahapana. However, after the death of Shatakarni, Gautami Putra Shatakarni, we find that Shatavahana power again declined while the Shaka power again increased, and this time the Saka ruler was Rudradaman. In fact, he raided Shatavahana territory many a time, and in fact later on became an important reason for the fall of Shatavahanas also. And we can also find that the extent of the empire, the territory of the empire, initially we find that the Shatavahanas were established in northern Maharashtra. However, gradually over a period of time, they started expanding into Andhra and the Karnataka region as well. So this was the brief political history of the Sathavahanas. Now let us focus on the economic aspects of the Sathavahanas. As we just now saw, that it was the spread of knowledge of intensive use of iron for agriculture and the spread of the knowledge of writing, etc., were responsible for the rise of new powers. And Shatavahanas was one such power which arose due to the economic impact of contacts with the north. That's how we find that the Satavahana economy slowly elevated itself from being subsistence economy, which did not provide much surplus, into a surplus economy, which could support a new political system where find army and bureaucracy. That is, we say the state has been formed in Satavahana, in the Deccan by the Satavahanas. Particularly, the reason behind is the spread of use of iron. So this is the material aspect or the economic aspect. Now let us look into the next aspect. That is the society or social organization of the Satavahanas. We just now saw that originally the Satavahanas were a tribe in the Deccan region. However, over a period of time, they started converting into Brahmins or came under the influence of the Brahmin society. And thus, we find that the Satavahanas claimed themselves to be the Brahmin section of Hindu society. In fact, even though to start off with, they were a tribe. And we also find that Shatavahanas played an important role in changing the Indian society because by having a marital relation with the Shakas who were foreigners, the Shakas were given or adopted or absorbed into Hindu society as Kshatriyas. Moreover, we'll also find that the Shatavahanas were the first rulers in India to initiate land grants to Brahmins as well as the Buddhist monks. That is, though the Satavahanas claimed to be Brahmins, they never discriminated against Buddhism. And we find that Buddhism also flourished equally during the Satavahana age. And we also find that another interesting factor of Satavahana society was that Aryan society, that is the Vedic society or Brahmanical society, was generally patriarchal. That is, their father dominated or male dominated societies. However, when we look at the Satavahana society, we can find that the names of the kings were put after the names of their mothers. Example, as the Gautami Putra, that is Putra of Gautami, Vashishti Putra, name of another king. So we find that in the Satavahana society we can find some ancient traces of matrilineal societies. However, we should be careful in observing that the Satavahana society was a patriarchal society without any doubt because inheritance of property or status was in the line of males. That is from the father to son. So we say that it is a patriarchal society, though we find certain traces of matrilineal societies in the Satavahana society. Now let us move on to the next aspect, that is the administrative aspect. Here again we clearly find the influence of the Mauryan Empire on the administrative pattern of the Satavahanas because Satavahanas used the same name for district, that is Ahara, which was used by the Mauryans. And we also find that for the officials, the Satavahana used the word Mahamatras or Amatyas, just as the Mauryan Empire or Mauryan officials were called as. So we find a clear influence of the Mauryan Empire on the Satavahana pattern of administration. That is the first aspect that we need to look into. However, we also find some unique features in Satavahana administration. Two unique features. One is that military character of Satavahana administration. What do we understand by military character? We can find that generally the governors of provinces are civilian officials. Whereas in the case of the governors of provinces under Satavahanas, we find these governors were military officials. Particularly, it was the Senapati. And that would bring us a question to our mind that why we need to put a military official in place of a civilian official as a governor of a province. The reason behind here is that most of the territories occupied by the Satavahanas were full of tribal people who were still not absorbed into the Brahmin society, and in order to ensure law and order in this area, a greater amount of force had to be used, and thus we find one particular character of Satavahanas is their military nature. Moreover, we can also find the military character reflected in the use of words like Kataka and Skandavaras repeatedly in the Satavahana inscriptions. What did they refer to? These were actually military camps but acted as administrative centers whenever the king visited these camps. So, implying that military camps also played an important administrative role, clearly showing the unique and distinctive feature of Satavahana administration. The second unique feature of Satavahana administration is its feudal nature, which we had seen some time back. That is, they were the first rulers who started granting tax-free land grants to the both Brahmin priests as well as the Buddhist monks. And these lands were not only free of taxation but also free of official interference. That is, we find that these areas which are land grants acted as some kind of independent islands within the Shatavahana territory. Apart from this, we also find several smaller kings ruling under the supreme king of Shatavahana, and these were generally divided into three grades. One as the Raja, in fact, he had the power of striking his own coins. The second level, Mahabhoja, and lastly, the third grade, we also find the Senapati, who were all some sort of smaller king ruling under a bigger or a more powerful king. That is, we find a kind of a decentralized system of administration, which is generally referred to as the feudal character of Satavahana administration. Having seen this, now let us turn our attention to see the religious aspects of the Shatavahana. When we discuss about the religion of Shatavahanas, the first point to be noted is that Shatavahanas claim themselves to be Hindus, and particularly within Hindus, they claim themselves to be Brahmins. And that means the arrival of Shatavahanas marked the revival of Brahmanism, and they started performing the Vedic sacrifices, that is the Ashwamedha, Vajapaya, etc. However, even though they were supporters of Brahmanism, they never suppressed Buddhism. In fact, we find Buddhism also flourished during the Satavahana rule, which indicates the tolerant attitude of the Satavahanas. And even within Buddhism, we find that the Mahayana form of Buddhism was the dominant form. And we also find that particularly two areas, one is in western Maharashtra, particularly Nasik and Junar areas, and in the Andhra region, particularly two areas, Amaravati and Nagarjuna, which had evolved as great Buddhist centers. And particularly Nagarjuna was taken to greater heights with respect to Buddhist influence by the Ikshvakus, who were the successors of Shatavahanas in the eastern portion. Now let us look into the cultural aspects, that is one by one. First, we look into the architecture. As usual of all ancient and medieval architecture, most of the art was inspired by religion, and mainly we find the influence of Buddhist religion on architecture, and thus the reason we find a lot of chaityas and viharas were built during the Shatavahana period. Chaityas are nothing but Buddhist temples, whereas the viharas were Buddhist monasteries, places where Buddhist monks resided and studied, and where they prayed is the Buddhist temples, about which you will study in greater detail in the culture section. Moreover, we also find another type of Buddhist architecture, that is the stupas, which contain the relics or remains of Buddha's bones and ashes. So these were the dominant type of architecture we find that had developed during the Satavahana period. And lastly, we need to look at the language aspect. The official language of the Satavahanas was Prakrit. Surprisingly, it is not Sanskrit. Please be careful about this aspect. And moreover, this Prakrit language was written in Brahmi script, as was used in the Mauryan times. So again, in this sense, the Satavahanas can be considered as the successors of Mauryans. And particularly of all the great literature that was produced, one particular Prakrit text called as Gatha Saptasati stands out for its importance. Particularly, it was written by a Satavahana king himself called as Hala, and this is a collection of verses on eroticism. And this brings us to an end with respect to the Shatavahanas. Let us now summarize. Here in this lecture, we had started seeing who were the Shatavahanas, and that is their origin. Later, we also saw their political history. In respect to origin, we saw that they were a tribe in Deccan who slowly started coming under the influence of Brahmin society, that is Vedic society, and started calling themselves as Brahmins. And we also found in the political history that they were located in the Deccan, and their chief rival was the Shakas in the western portion of the country. with whom they waged relentless conflicts between both of these. In the economic aspect, we saw that it is because of the spread of material culture from the north during the Mauryan Empire. Many other areas in the country started learning the greater usage of iron and writing, which allowed for the emergence of the new political powers like the Sathavahanas. And this is how we find the spread of economic culture from the north started helping in the rise of Sathavahanas in the Deccan. And then we saw their administrative patterns. Here we found three important aspects. One is that in many aspects they were similar to the Mauryan rule, particularly in the naming of officials and the administrative provinces like districts. However, they also had a few unique features. Particularly, one is the military nature of Satavahana administration, where we found Senapati being put as the head of the province, the names Kataka and Skandavaras being repeatedly used in inscriptions. And we also found that they had another special feature in their administration, that is the feudal nature, which is very decentralized, particularly because of the tax-free land grants that were given to the Buddhist and the Brahmin. And then we also saw the religious aspect of the Brahmin, the Satavahanas, who claimed themselves to be Brahmin. So they contributed to the revival of Brahmanism. However, they were quite tolerant towards other religion as well. And Buddhism, in fact, flourished under them, and that too, the particular form that is the Mahayana Buddhism that flourished during that time. And we saw that areas in western Maharashtra and in Andhra started developing as great religious centers for Buddhism. And then when we saw into the cultural aspect, we saw that architecture is clearly reflecting the Buddhist influence during the Shatavahana period in the form of the building of chaityas, viharas, stupas, etc. And finally, with respect to the language, we saw that one important point, that is because they considered themselves as Brahmins, there is a tendency that we may see that Sanskrit would have been the official language, but however, that is not the case. It is Prakrit that was the official language, and with the script written in Brahmi, which were again features of continuity from the Maurya. So this ends the Satavahanas. The next topic will deal with the chapter 18 of this NCERT, Ancient India, class 11, that is the dawn of history in deep south. Thank you.